Jake Martinez walked down the long white hallway of the Terran diplomatic station. His black security uniform felt heavy on his shoulders as he made his rounds. The station floated in space above Earth, spinning slowly to create gravity. Through the big windows he could see his home planet below, blue and beautiful. Jake had worked here for 3 years. He loved his job, even though it was not always easy. The station was where humans met aliens for the first time. Different species came here to talk, trade, and make deals. Jake's job was to keep everyone safe and make sure they followed the rules. The other security officers thought Jake was too soft. They said he cared too much about the aliens. Colonel Harrison, his boss, always told Jake to be tougher. "These aliens are not your friends," Harrison would say. "They are here for business." Nothing more. But Jake could not help himself. When he saw someone hurt or scared, he wanted to help. It did not matter if they were human or alien. As Jake turned a corner, he heard a strange sound. It was like glass breaking mixed with a bird's cry. He ran toward the sound and found something that made his heart race. An old alien lay on the floor in the restricted hallway. Jake had seen this type of alien before. They were called Zephyrians. This one had skin that looked like blue crystal and long white hair that seemed to glow. His name was Veltar, and he was one of the most important Zephyrian leaders. Veltar was breathing hard. His crystal skin was turning dark, which Jake knew meant he was very sick. The alien's large purple eyes looked at Jake with pain and fear. Jake looked around quickly. No one else was there. He knew the rules said he should not touch aliens without permission. He should call for help and wait. But Veltar looked like he might die. Jake knelt down next to the alien. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm going to help you." He pulled out his medical kit and checked Veltar's pulse. The alien's heart was beating too fast. Jake gave him some oxygen and water. Slowly, Veltar's breathing got better. Then something amazing happened. Veltar reached out and touched Jake's hand. Suddenly, Jake's mind filled with pictures and feelings that were not his own. He saw ancient cities made of crystal. He saw star maps with paths between worlds. He saw a dark shadow moving across the galaxy, eating everything in its path. In his mind, Jake heard Veltar's voice, even though the alien's lips did not move. "You are the one from the old stories," Veltar said. "The bridge builder. The one who will bring all species together when the darkness comes." Jake felt confused. "I don't understand," he thought back. "You will," Veltar replied. "Your heart knows no borders between species. This is rare and precious. One day you will save us all." The mental connection broke when Jake heard footsteps. 3 security officers ran into the hallway, followed by Colonel Harrison. Harrison was a tall man with gray hair and cold eyes. He looked angry. "Martinez," Harrison shouted. "Step away from the alien immediately." Jake stood up, his hands shaking. "Sir, he was hurt. I was just helping him." "You were touching an alien diplomat without permission," Harrison said. "That's against every rule we have." The medical team arrived and took Veltar away on a stretcher. As they carried him past Jake, the old alien looked at him one more time. In that look, Jake saw gratitude and something else, a promise that this was not the end. Harrison grabbed Jake's arm. "Come with me now." In Harrison's office, Jake tried to explain what happened. "He was dying, sir. I couldn't just leave him there." Harrison sat behind his big desk, his face red with anger. "Do you know what you've done? That alien is the most important Zephyrian on this station. If something had happened to him while you were touching him, it could have started a war. But I helped him," Jake said. "He's alive because I helped him." "You broke the rules," Harrison replied. "You always break the rules, Martinez. You think your feelings matter more than orders. You think you know better than everyone else." Jake felt his heart sink. He had heard this speech before, but never with such anger. Harrison opened a file on his computer. "You're fired, Martinez. Security will escort you off the station in 1 hour. You'll never work in space security again." Jake stared at his boss in shock. "Sir, please. This job means everything to me." "Should have thought about that before you decided to play doctor with an alien," Harrison said. "You're too weak for this job, Martinez. You care too much about the wrong things," Jake wanted to argue. But he knew it would not help. Harrison had already made up his mind. Jake had always been different from the other officers. They followed orders without question. Jake followed his heart. An hour later, Jake stood in the shuttle bay with his few belongings in a bag. The other security officers avoided looking at him. Some seemed sad to see him go, but none spoke up for him. As the shuttle took him away from the station, Jake looked back at the place that had been his home and his dream. He thought about Veltar's words about being a bridge builder. It seemed impossible now. How could someone who just got fired for helping an alien ever save anyone? The shuttle flew toward Earth, carrying Jake away from the stars and back to a world that suddenly felt too small. He did not know that Veltar was already healing and planning. He did not know that his act of kindness had started something much bigger than himself. All Jake knew was that he had lost everything for doing what felt right. As Earth grew larger in the window, Jake wondered if he would ever see the stars again. He had no idea that fate was preparing something greater for him than he could ever imagine. The man who had been fired for helping an alien would soon discover that sometimes losing everything is the first step toward finding your true purpose. 6 months had passed since Jake lost his job at the Terran diplomatic station. Life on Earth felt like a prison after working among the stars. Every job he applied for ended the same way. When employers saw his firing record, they would shake their heads and tell him they were sorry. Security risk, they would say. Can't follow orders. Not suitable for our company. Jake's savings ran out quickly. He had to move from his nice apartment to a small room in the city's cheap district. The walls were thin, and he could hear his neighbors fighting every night. He ate simple food and wore the same clothes until they had holes. Finally, Jake found work at Peterson Freight Station, a civilian space dock that handled cargo ships. It was not glamorous work. Jake fixed broken pipes, cleaned floors, and loaded cargo containers. The pay was terrible, but it kept him alive. The other workers were kind to Jake, but they did not understand him. Most had never left Earth's solar system. They could not understand why Jake stared at the stars through the station windows with such sadness. "It's just space," said Pete, an older maintenance worker. "Dark and cold and empty. Why do you look at it like that?" Jake could not explain that space was not empty to him. It was full of possibilities, of different worlds and species waiting to meet each other. But now he was stuck fixing toilets instead of helping build bridges between civilizations. One day, Jake was cleaning out Storage Bay 7, one of the oldest sections of the station. The bay had not been used in years, and everything was covered in dust. As Jake moved old containers, he found something strange in the corner. It was a metal box about the size of a briefcase. The metal looked different from anything Jake had seen before. It seemed to shift colors when he moved, going from silver to blue to purple. Strange symbols were carved into its surface. Jake opened the box carefully. Inside, he found pieces of something that looked like crystal, but they felt warm to the touch. The pieces glowed softly with their own light. When Jake picked up one piece, it grew brighter. "What are you?" Jake whispered to himself. He gathered all the pieces and took them to his small room. That night, Jake studied them under his desk lamp. There were 12 pieces in total, each one different but clearly part of something larger. They fit together like puzzle pieces, but Jake was missing several parts. Jake used the station's computer to research what he had found. Most of the information was locked behind security codes he could not access, but he found some old files about archaeological discoveries in human space. The files mentioned objects called harmony cores, found on dead worlds across the galaxy. Scientists had studied them for years but could never make them work. The cores were supposedly made by an ancient species called the architects, who had disappeared millions of years ago. According to the files, every major alien species had found similar objects. The Zephyrians had them, the warrior Chronari had them, even the mysterious Helix Collective had them. But like humans, none could activate the ancient technology. Jake read about the legends surrounding the cores. Some alien cultures believed they were tools for communication across vast distances. Others thought they were weapons. A few believed they were keys to something much more important. As Jake read, he absently touched the crystal pieces. Suddenly, they began to glow brighter. The pieces moved on their own, sliding across his desk and connecting to each other. In seconds, they had formed a partial sphere about the size of a baseball. The partial core hummed with energy. Jake felt a strange tingling in his hands and mind. For a moment, he could sense something vast and far away. It was like hearing whispers in a language he almost understood. Then the feeling stopped and the pieces went dark again. Jake stared at what he had done. Nobody else had ever activated architect technology. The greatest scientists in human space had failed. Yet somehow Jake had done it by accident. Over the next few weeks, Jake experimented with the partial core in secret. Each time he touched it, the device responded differently. Sometimes it showed him images of distant stars. Other times it filled his mind with mathematical equations he could not understand. Jake began to suspect that his experience with Veltar had changed him somehow. The Zephyrian's mental touch had left something behind, some ability to connect with ancient technology. One night, the partial core did something new. It sent out a pulse of energy that Jake could feel but not see. The pulse traveled outward from the station, moving faster than light toward the distant stars. Jake did not know it, but his pulse had just announced his presence to every harmony core in the galaxy. On dozens of worlds, ancient devices that had been silent for millennia suddenly awakened. Alien archaeologists and mystics felt the pulse and knew that something important had happened. But the pulse did not only reach friendly ears. Far out in the dark space between galaxies, something else felt it too. Ancient enemies that had been sleeping began to stir. They turned their attention toward the small galaxy, where a young species had just awakened technology they did not understand. Jake put the partial core away and went to bed, unaware that he had just changed the fate of every living being in the galaxy. He thought he was just a failed security guard playing with old artifacts. In his dreams that night, Jake saw Veltar's face again. The old Zephyrian was smiling, and his purple eyes held the same promise Jake had seen in the hallway months ago. The bridge builder awakens. Veltar said in the dream, "Soon, you will understand your true purpose." Jake woke up feeling that his life was about to change again. He had no idea how right he was. 3 weeks after Jake activated the partial harmony core, a woman came to Peterson Freight Station looking for him. Her name was Dr. Lisa Chen, and she claimed to be a scientist studying ancient alien artifacts. Lisa was a small woman with kind eyes and graying hair. She found Jake in the maintenance bay where he was repairing a broken air recycler. "Jake Martinez," she asked. "I need to speak with you about something very important." Jake looked up from his work, suspicious. "Who are you? How do you know my name?" Lisa glanced around to make sure they were alone. "My name is Dr. Chen. I study architect technology. 3 weeks ago, every harmony core in known space received a signal. The signal came from this station." Jake's heart started beating faster. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Please," Lisa said. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm here because you might be the only person who can help save the galaxy." Jake put down his tools and really looked at Lisa. She seemed honest, but Jake had learned to be careful about trusting people. "Even if I knew something about these cores," Jake said, "why would you care? You're just a scientist," Lisa sighed. "I'm going to tell you something that most people don't know. The government doesn't want people to panic, so they keep it secret. But we're all in danger." She pulled out a small device and showed Jake images of deep space. "Long-range sensors have detected something moving toward our galaxy. Something huge. We call them the Devourers." The images showed dark shapes moving between stars. They were not ships as Jake understood them. They looked like living shadows that bent space around themselves. "What are they?" Jake asked. "We don't know exactly," Lisa replied, "but we know what they do. They consume entire civilizations. They eat planets, stars, everything. They leave nothing behind but empty space." Jake felt cold. "How do you know this?" "Because they've done it before," Lisa said. "The architects, the species that made the harmony cores, were running from the Devourers millions of years ago. The architects seeded the galaxy with their technology, hoping that future species could use it to defend themselves." Lisa showed Jake more images, these ones from ancient alien texts. The pictures showed great battles between beings of light and creatures of darkness. "Every major species in the galaxy has legends about this war," Lisa continued. "The Zephyrians call it the Great Silence. The Chronari call it the Time of Ending. But they all describe the same thing, an enemy that comes from outside the galaxy and destroys everything." Jake thought about his encounter with Veltar. The old Zephyrian had mentioned darkness coming. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're the first person to activate architect technology," Lisa said. "And because I think someone tried to kill the alien who identified you." This surprised Jake. "What do you mean?" Lisa's expression grew grave. "Veltar, the Zephyrian elder you helped, was poisoned. It wasn't an accident that he collapsed near you. Someone wanted him dead before he could complete his mission." "His mission?" "To find the bridge builder," Lisa said. Veltar spent decades studying ancient prophecies. He came to your station because he believed the prophesied person was working there. Jake felt overwhelmed. This is crazy. I'm just a maintenance worker. I got fired for breaking rules. You got fired because Colonel Harrison wanted you gone, Lisa said. Harrison belongs to a group called Terra First. They believe humans should rule the galaxy alone without alien allies. They've been working to prevent cooperation between species. Lisa showed Jake files she had stolen from government computers. The files showed that Terra First had people in many important positions throughout human space. They know about the Devourers, Lisa explained. But they think humanity can fight them alone. They're wrong. No single species is strong enough to survive what's coming. Jake looked at the evidence Lisa had brought. It was hard to believe, but it made sense of many things that had puzzled him. What does this have to do with me? He asked. The harmony cores are the key to defeating the Devourers, Lisa said. But they only work when operated by someone with the right mental patterns. Someone who can think beyond species barriers and truly understand cooperation. Lisa pulled out a device that looked like a medical scanner. May I scan your brain patterns? I need to confirm something. Jake nodded, still trying to process everything he had learned. Lisa ran the scanner over his head and it beeped several times. Incredible, she whispered, looking at the results. Your neural patterns match the theoretical requirements perfectly. You have the rare combination of empathy and logic that architect technology needs. So what happens now? Jake asked. Now we find Veltar, Lisa said. He's been hiding since the poisoning attempt. But he's been gathering other alien leaders who believe in the prophecies. They're waiting for you, Jake laughed, but it was not a happy sound. 6 months ago, I was a security officer who got fired for helping someone. Now you want me to save the galaxy? I know it sounds impossible, Lisa said. But the signal you sent out 3 weeks ago has already started things moving. Alien fleets are beginning to gather in secret. Ancient alliances are being renewed. The galaxy is preparing for war. And if I refuse? Lisa looked sad. Then the Devourers will consume everything we know and love. Every human, every alien, every world will become nothing but empty space. Jake was quiet for a long time, thinking about everything Lisa had told him. Finally, he asked, Where is Veltar? Hidden on a space station in the outer colonies, Lisa said. Will you come with me to meet him? Jake looked around the maintenance bay that had been his world for months. Then he thought about the stars beyond the station walls and all the life that existed among them. Yes, he said, let's go save the galaxy. As they prepared to leave Peterson Freight Station, neither Jake nor Lisa noticed the small spy device that had been recording their conversation. Colonel Harrison and Terra First now knew exactly where Jake was and what he planned to do. The race to unite the galaxy had begun, and the enemy was already moving to stop them. The secret meeting place was an old mining station called Haven Point, floating in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. As Jake and Dr. Chen approached in their small ship, Jake could see other vessels docked there. Ships he had never seen before with designs that were clearly not human. Are you ready for this? Lisa asked as they prepared to dock. Jake touched the partial harmony core in his pocket. It had been growing warmer as they got closer to the station, as if it sensed something important was about to happen. I don't think anyone could be ready for this, Jake replied. The docking bay was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. Aliens of different species stood together, talking in groups. Jake recognized some from his time on the diplomatic station, but others were completely new to him. Veltar was waiting for them as they stepped off their ship. The old Zephyrian looked much better than when Jake had last seen him. His crystal skin was bright blue again and his purple eyes were alert and warm. Jake Martinez, Veltar said, approaching with his arms outstretched. The bridge builder returns to us. This time, when Veltar touched Jake's hand, the mental connection was gentle and welcoming. Jake felt the alien's gratitude and hope flowing into his mind. I'm glad you're okay, Jake said out loud. Thanks to you, my friend, Veltar replied. Come, there are others you must meet. Veltar led Jake and Lisa through the station to a large meeting room. Inside, representatives from a dozen different species were waiting. Jake recognized the tall, armor-plated Chronari warriors, the floating, jellyfish-like Helix Collective members, and the graceful Void dancers with their silver skin and 4 arms. But there were others Jake had only read about. The rock-like Granite Brotherhood, who rarely left their home worlds. The energy beings called the Luminous, who appeared as glowing humanoid shapes. even a representative of the mysterious deep swimmers, who lived in the oceans of gas giant planets. "Friends," Veltar announced, "the bridge builder has come." An old Chronari warrior stepped forward. His name was General Raxus, and his red armor was covered with battle scars. "You are smaller than I expected, human," he said in a voice like grinding stone. "Size doesn't matter when it comes to courage," replied Commander Nova of the Void Dancers. Her 4 hands moved gracefully as she spoke. "We have all felt the signal from his harmony core. The ancient technology responds to him as it responds to no other." A Helix collective member floated closer to Jake. Its tentacles glowed with soft light as it communicated, through translated thought speech. "The young human's mind patterns are indeed unique, but awakening the cores is only the beginning. Can he unite our peoples when the darkness comes?" Jake felt overwhelmed by all the attention. "I'm not sure I understand what you all expect me to do." Veltar gestured to the center of the room, where a large table displayed a map of the galaxy. "Show them, my friend. Show them what your core can do." Jake pulled out his partial harmony core. As soon as he touched it, the device began to glow. The other aliens gasped as similar devices around the room, cores they had brought from their own worlds, also began to activate. The galaxy map changed, showing streams of light connecting different star systems. Jake realized he was seeing a network that spanned the entire galaxy, linking worlds and species that had never met. "This is what the architects created," Veltar explained, "a way for all civilized species to work together against the great threat." Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the station. A human voice came over the speakers. "Unknown ships approaching. All personnel to emergency stations." General Raxus growled and activated his weapon systems. "We have been found." Through the station windows, Jake could see human military ships surrounding Haven Point. He recognized the design. They were from the same fleet that protected the Terran diplomatic station. "Colonel Harrison," Jake said with a sinking heart. A communication signal came through to the meeting room. Harrison's face appeared on the main screen, his expression cold and angry. "This is Colonel Harrison of the Terran Defense Force," he announced. "You are all under arrest for conspiracy against human interests. Surrender immediately." Commander Nova stepped forward. "We are in neutral space, human. You have no authority here." Harrison smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. "I have the authority of superior firepower. You have 5 minutes to surrender or we will take this station by force." The alien representatives began arguing among themselves. Some wanted to fight, others wanted to negotiate, and a few suggested running away. "Stop," Jake shouted, and everyone turned to look at him. This is exactly what Harrison wants. He wants us divided and fighting each other instead of working together. Jake activated his harmony core again, and its light filled the room. "The Devourers are coming. I don't know exactly when, but I can feel them getting closer. If we fight each other now, there won't be anyone left to fight them." Veltar nodded. "The bridge builder speaks wisdom. But how do we escape Harrison's trap?" Jake looked at the galaxy map again, studying the network of connected cores. "We don't escape. We show him the truth." Before anyone could stop him, Jake opened a communication channel to Harrison's ship. "Colonel, this is Jake Martinez. I want to talk to you." Harrison's face appeared on screen again. "Martinez, I should have known you were behind this alien conspiracy." "There's no conspiracy," Jake said. "There's a threat coming that will destroy all of us, humans and aliens alike. You need to see what we've learned." "The only threat is aliens trying to weaken humanity," Harrison replied. "You've been brainwashed, Martinez. But I'll give you one chance. Surrender now and I'll make sure you get medical help instead of prison." Jake held up his harmony core so Harrison could see it. "This technology is the only thing that can save us. But it only works when species cooperate." "Ancient alien technology?" Harrison laughed. "You really have lost your mind." That's when the long-range sensors detected something that made everyone go silent. Far out at the galaxy's edge, space itself was bending and twisting. Something vast and dark was moving between the stars, consuming everything in its path. The first Devourer scouts had arrived. On Harrison's ship, his science officer reported the readings with a shaking voice. "Sir, we're detecting massive gravitational anomalies in Sector 7. Something is destroying entire star systems." Harrison's confident expression began to change as he realized that Jake might not be crazy after all. "Colonel," Jake said quietly, "it's starting. The enemy is here. We can fight each other and die separately, or we can work together and maybe survive. For a long moment, Harrison stared at the sensor readings. Then he looked back at Jake through the communication screen. God help us all, Harrison whispered. What do you need us to do? 3 months had passed since the first Devourer scouts appeared at the galaxy's edge. The enemy moved slowly but steadily, consuming entire star systems and leaving nothing behind but twisted space. Every attempt to fight them with conventional weapons had failed completely. Jake stood on the bridge of the Unity, a massive ship built by combining human and alien technology. Around him, representatives from 50 different species worked together, sharing information and resources in ways that had never happened before. The Harmony Core network was almost complete. Jake had traveled to dozens of worlds, helping to activate ancient cores and teaching others how to use them. Each new connection made the network stronger, but it also brought a terrible realization. To stop the Devourers, someone would have to link their mind permanently with all the cores at once. That person would become a living bridge between every species in the galaxy, but they might lose their individual identity in the process. Jake, said Veltar, approaching him with a worried expression, the council is ready to hear your decision. Jake nodded and followed his friend to the main conference room. Inside, the greatest leaders of the galaxy waited. Admiral Sarah Blake represented humanity. General Raxus spoke for the Chronari. Commander Nova led the Void Dancers. Even the mysterious Deep Swimmers had sent a representative. The Devourer main fleet will reach the core worlds in 6 days, Admiral Blake reported. Our combined fleets are in position, but without the full network, we can't coordinate well enough to stop them. The theoretical calculations are complete, added Dr. Chen, who had become the chief scientist for the Alliance. One person must link with all cores simultaneously. The mental strain will be enormous. Jake looked around the room at faces both human and alien. I understand the risks. I'm ready to do it. Wait, said a familiar voice from the doorway. Colonel Harrison entered the room, looking older than Jake remembered. Before you make this sacrifice, there's something you need to know. Harrison had changed dramatically since learning about the Devourers. He had disbanded Terra First and dedicated himself to the Alliance. But Jake could see guilt in the older man's eyes. What is it, Colonel? Jake asked. Harrison pulled out a datapad. I've been studying the records from your original encounter with Veltar. The poisoning attempt wasn't random. I gave the order. The room fell silent. Veltar's crystal skin darkened with shock and anger. I believed that preventing alien cooperation would keep humanity strong, Harrison continued. I was wrong about everything. Veltar nearly died because of my fear and pride. Jake felt a surge of anger, but then he remembered something Veltar had taught him. Hatred only makes us weaker. What matters now is stopping the Devourers. You're more forgiving than I deserve, Harrison said, but I want to make things right. Let me link with the cores instead of you. It's my fault we're in this situation. It won't work, Dr. Chen explained. The neural patterns have to be exactly right. Jake is the only one who can do it safely. General Raxus slammed his armored fist on the table. Then we fight and die with honor. Better that than losing our greatest ally to this machine network. The Chronari are right, agreed Commander Nova. There must be another way. Jake walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Devourers were coming to destroy everything he cared about. Every world, every person, every dream would become nothing unless someone made the hard choice. I've been thinking about what it means to be a bridge builder, Jake said, turning back to the group. A bridge connects 2 places, but it's not really part of either one. That's what I have to become. Jake, no, Admiral Blake protested. We can't ask you to give up your humanity. I'm not giving it up, Jake replied. I'm using it to save everyone else's. 3 days later, the final battle began. The Devourer main fleet emerged from dark space like a plague of living shadows. They were huge beyond imagination, each one the size of a small moon. Conventional space looked sick around them, bending and twisting in ways that hurt to see. The Allied fleet was the largest force ever assembled in galactic history. Human ships flew alongside Chronari war vessels. Helix collective spheres danced around Void Dancer crescents. Even the peaceful species had come to fight for their survival, but their first attacks failed completely. Energy weapons passed through the Devourers like they were shooting at ghosts. Physical projectiles were absorbed and turned into more dark matter. The enemy began consuming the outer defense fleets with terrifying ease. "It's time," Jake said from the network chamber deep inside the Unity. "Activate all cores simultaneously." Around the galaxy, thousands of Harmony cores came online at once. The ancient network that the architects had built millions of years ago blazed to life for the first time since their extinction. Jake placed his hands on the master core and opened his mind to the network. Instantly, he felt the thoughts and emotions of billions of beings. Human determination, Chronari battle fury, Zephyrian wisdom, Void Dancer grace. All of it flowed through his consciousness. The sensation was overwhelming. Jake felt his individual identity beginning to blur as he became connected to every allied ship and soldier. But instead of losing himself, he found something greater. He was still Jake Martinez, but he was also part of something larger and more beautiful than he had ever imagined. Through the network, Jake could coordinate the movements of 10,000 ships with perfect precision. He felt the Devourer's confusion as the Allied fleet suddenly began fighting with impossible unity. Ships that had never worked together before moved like parts of a single organism. The battle turned. Working together through Jake's coordination, the Alliance discovered that the Devourers could be damaged by combining different types of energy in specific patterns. Human plasma cannons charged with Chronari battle crystals and guided by Zephyrian telepathy could actually hurt the ancient enemy. But victory came with a price. Each moment Jake spent in the network, he became more connected to it and less connected to his original self. He could feel his individual consciousness beginning to fade into the collective. Then Veltar's voice reached him through the mental link. "Remember who you are, Bridge Builder. You are not losing yourself, you are becoming yourself." Jake understood. He was not disappearing into the network. He was becoming exactly what he was meant to be, a living connection between all the species of the galaxy. His human compassion and determination remained, but now they were shared by everyone. The final Devourer ship fell 6 hours after the battle began. The ancient enemy that had destroyed the architects was finally defeated by the unity they had made possible. When Jake finally disconnected from the network, he was changed, but still recognizably himself. His eyes now held flecks of the colors he had seen in alien minds: Zephyrian purple, Chronari red, Void Dancer silver. He could sense the emotions of other species more clearly than before, but his own humanity remained strong. A year later, Jake stood in his new office on Earth, which had become the capital of the Galactic Alliance. His title was Galaxy Coordinator, a position that belonged to no single government but was recognized by all. Through his window, he could see human children playing with young aliens in the parks. Zephyrian crystal gardens grew next to human flower beds. Chronari warriors taught human soldiers while human engineers worked with Helix Collective technicians. Veltar entered the office, carrying reports from the outer colonies. "The final integration is proceeding well," the old Zephyrian said. 5 new species have petitioned to join the Alliance." Jake smiled. "Any problems?" "A few disputes over trade routes, and the Granite Brotherhood is still arguing about mining rights with the human colonies. Nothing that can't be solved with patience and good communication." Jake laughed. "Just like old times." "Not quite like old times," Veltar corrected. "We are building something new. Something the galaxy has never seen before." Jake nodded and looked back out at the city where dozens of species lived and worked together in peace. He thought about that day months ago when he had helped a sick alien in a hallway, breaking the rules and losing his job. Sometimes the greatest destinies really did begin with the smallest acts of kindness. The bridge builder had found his purpose, and the galaxy was finally united.